Reputation, TV, is the most important re-recorded album of Taylor Swift. Misunderstood and underrated, it deserves a second chance. And we as a society must be given the opportunity to celebrate it free from its heavy 2017 context, with the perspective of the woman we now know Taylor Swift to be. Trump context. The fact that back in 2017 Swift was still considered to be the wrong one in Kim and Kanye drama actually benefited the Reputation era. A comeback of Taylor Swift after being exposed built quite an anticipation for her new work. As a result of it, Look What You Made Me Do music video broke the record for the most views in its first 24 hours of release at that time. But the other side of the internet wasn't very excited. The media called her out to be petty, exhausting, and playing the victim. "You can't be a victim and a villain," summed up Cosmopolitan. Less than 2 weeks into her Reputation era, Taylor Swift has never been more exhausting, wrote USA Today. The internet couldn't have loved to hate it more. The mainstream media has clearly picked a side back in summer 2016. So by 2017, with conclusions set and sides labeled, what was there left to speak about? Everyone seemed over it all, except for Taylor. The internet made the whole revenge anthem concept seem like an act of tantrum, and Taylor an immature person. First, because of the misogyny, it's easy to label a vulnerable woman as a petty little girl. Second, the context. Society felt they were dealing with way bigger problems than defamation of Swift. Donald Trump was elected as a US president along with the resurgence of actual Nazis. All that was such a glaring disaster, nothing could be perceived without its light, not even Reputation. Her political silence at such a polarizing moment was making everything worse. New York Magazine called Look What You Made Me Do music video the first pure, truly emblematic, undeniable piece of pop art of the Trump era. The article interpreted the lead single as the anthem of abrogation of personal responsibility, never having to say you're sorry because every conceivable way you lash out must be someone else's fault. The Guardian went as far as calling Swift not simply a product of the age of Trump, but a musical envoy for the president's values. The message of the Reputation era was defined as quintessentially Trumpian: everyone is out to get me, but I win anyway. While shamelessly comparing Taylor to Donald Trump and calling her petty, the internet missed the whole essence of Reputation. There was something new and refreshing about revenge fantasy. Although Look What You Made Me Do is about very specific events and people, it's insanely relatable. Don't tell me you haven't been publicly embarrassed, taken advantage of, or simply defeated in the argument you would easily win in your head after. We often claim indifference to others' opinions, only to find ourselves lying awake, fixating on our mistakes, daydreaming about second chances, or perhaps sweet revenge. In Look What You Made Me Do, I see Taylor through her eyes, as someone who was hurt, went through hell, and isn't afraid to show it affected her. And we know real emotion when we see it. The lead single is about that for me. The risk. The old Taylor was indeed dead, or at least overthrown as a result of revolution. Freedom is simply a term for having nothing more to lose, and when Reputation came around, Swift was prepared for substantial risks. Reputation was the biggest one she has ever taken in her career, though the record mostly delves into contemplative synthpop, not straying too far from the style of 1989, it is sonically heavier, louder, and darker than its predecessor. If Taylor just switched to pop in 1989, she brought pop to its maximum in Reputation. You don't really expect a Taylor Swift album to open with a fuzzy, fat bass line that nearly rumbles the teeth out of the back of your mouth. To say she surprised everyone is a big understatement. As Billboard's Joe Lynch writes, this wasn't just a creative risk, it was Taylor giving harshest critics a hand-wrapped gift and daring them to come after her. Especially chaotic was the first part of the album. Swift not only delved into rap herself in Ready for It and Endgame, but also brought in soft rock torchbearer Ed Sheeran to join forces with one of the guiding lights of the genre, Future. Mature woman. The shock wave caused by the EDM sound of the record overshadowed the lyrical worth of Reputation. It is the first truly mature, adult release from Swift. Delicate is the album's initial display of vulnerability, triumphs in stripping away the EDM aggression present in the preceding tracks. Is it cool that I said all that? Taylor whispers, while an intensely emotional love song manages to be both intimate and grand, flowing like a spontaneous confession despite its carefully crafted composition. Honest and direct, in my opinion, it is one of the best songs Taylor has ever written. Despite the vulnerability, the album paints a picture of Taylor embracing her freedom, marking the start of a new era of empowerment for her. It's the first album Swift swears on, or references drinking alcohol, or real, physical intimacy. You know I'm not a bad girl, but I do bad things with you. She sings on So It Goes, one of the most passionate and sexually charged tracks of her career. Scratches down your back now, she adds for a more vivid visual effect. Swift's words deliver vivid Polaroid shots directly to your brain in Dress, only bought this dress so you could take it off, and of course, Dancing with Our Hands Tied, a generic, EDM-tinged number about dating and falling in love amidst the chaos of media scandal where she sings, and Darling, you had turned my bed into a sacred oasis. Don't Blame Me, with a gothic, gospel-influenced production, aggressive synthesizers and dubstep beats is lyrically dark and intimate. Taylor compares her love to a drug addiction and assures she would step over her pride and fall from grace to keep the lover. I'd beg you on my knees to stay. Emotional intelligence. Swift's music was always about emotion, but while her previous albums are fixated on love and loss, Reputation sinks its teeth into something far more interesting: the excitement and determination of an artist committed to liberating their mind from external expectations. While she's showcased intelligence since Speak Now, the jump in the emotional intelligence is significant on Reputation. Swift now recognizes that being right or having the last word isn't the ultimate priority. Whether you find yourself as the messy one, the lost sheep, the sinner, or the seducer, a true grown-up can concede that they may sometimes play the role of the bad guy, and it's acceptable. The peak for that approach is gorgeous, at least for me. Taylor is openly abandoning the mantle of innocent princess in favor of becoming a tipsy millennial torn between cheating on her partner or cuddling her cats. There's nothing I hate more than what I can't have. Guess I'll just stumble on home to my cats alone. Unless you want to come along. She's acknowledging that stumbling morally is part of life. Her motivations here are muddy and silly, and never before had Taylor Swift drawn such a flawed version of herself in a song. In terms of pop music, moral gray areas are almost never painted in such screaming color. Reclaiming narrative. And of course, Reputation is the perfect example of how Swift used the narrative that was designed to destroy her brand to her advantage. I would very much like to be excluded from this narrative, wrote the old Taylor in 2016, but the new one was all about reclaiming it. The internet blamed her for the drama with Kanye and Kim. Here she is selling the lack of remorse on, I did something bad, and daring them to light her up on fire for that. The web called her snake, so here she is sitting on the throne made of vipers in Look What You Made Me Do. In the end of the video, Taylor makes it clear she knows what they call her out there: fake, inauthentic, dramatic, and petty. She sells it back to haters. Summary. Taylor needed Reputation, and the backlash to it to prompt her political mobilization. The confidence Swift gained during the Reputation era empowered her to overcome the mild, neutral persona that had restrained her political expression throughout the initial decade or so of her career. A year after Reputation, Swift endorsed her first political candidates, both local Tennessee Democrats, and since then, she's proudly fought for LGBTQ rights and denounced the evils of the Trump presidency. Reputation is the most versatile record of Taylor Swift to date. It includes everything the world loves about Taylor: King of My Heart, Call It What You Want, and New Year's Day, are smooth examples of what you would expect from Swift's record. Getaway Car is as radiant as 1989's Style, with its thumping 80s beat, the vehicular romance, the huge chorus. On This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, the first thing the internet noticed was the way Taylor pronounced baby. But the song is delightful, the catchy cheerleader chant hook is contagious, and the explicit references to Kim and Kanye are boldly evident. The critic Zach Schoenfeld called the track the bad blood of Reputation, but better. I think that sums it up perfectly. Here, a highly skilled artist is embracing her contradictions, recognizing her imperfections, and daring others to judge her. Reputation was a risk, a revolution, even, but it was one she bulldozed. And not just for herself, either. Rolling Stone asserts that, if Ariana, Billie, Halsey and others seem so effortlessly themselves, it's in part because Swift worked so hard at speaking her truth and smiting her enemies.